guys, Max back here at the tips bench. Now the tips bench isn't always going to be about new modeler tips. It'll sometimes be about new product tips, and that's what we have for you today. We have our new Durafly Me-163 Comet, which we've done a product profile about, which you can see here. It has an unboxing from Stuart, it has a full flight with our buddy Tom and Matt, and it also has Matt's segment about how to set up the rocket section of the Me-163. And that's what this tip's going to be about. So we're going to throw you to that segment right now.
Now, one other important thing obviously we haven't covered here is how to make use of that rocket system in this airplane. I'm going to take you through that right now, show you what you'll need and how to wire it up so that you can make use of that very cool feature of this model. Now, first of all, what you're going to need, the most important thing that you're going to need is this Turnigy receiver controlled switch right here. Now, this little switch, as you see, comes with two red leads on one side, a servo lead on the other, and a pair of jumpers on it. You're going to leave those two jumpers in place. That makes this switch into a momentary on-off, sorry, not a momentary, but an alternating on and off switch. And you're going to connect that to a spare channel on your receiver. Now, I pulled this system out of our battle-weary Me-163 here. This is the plane that we've been using for the entire video and also some testing and some other stuff, so it's pretty beat up. Apologize for that, but over here, I've taken the ESC out, disconnected the other systems, and got the receiver here in my hand. Now, I've just pulled out two aileron connectors, or the aileron and elevator connectors, since these are elevons, the rudder connector, and the gear release. Those I'm leaving there in the aircraft because all I need to focus on for you guys right now is the ESC, which plugs into the throttle connector, and this switch, which if you're running a 6-channel receiver like I am here, goes into your aux1 channel, your 6th channel, which will be on your flap switch. I'm going to try to show you this as simply as I can. In the back of the model, I'll show you that real quick. Right at the tail of the aircraft here, you can see right below the rocket port is a little groove. Now that's a specifically molded groove to accept a JST connector. So what you're going to want to do is grab yourself a JST pigtail. You can buy one from us on the side, or you can just make one. And you're going to take that and make a nice long lead with just two wires on it, a positive and a negative, so you can get to the front of the aircraft. Now you're going to solder that lead. The negative end goes directly here to the negative side of the aircraft XT60 connector, and the positive end goes to your little Turnigy receiver controlled switch. One end to the switch here, and the other end of the switch to the positive lead from the battery. Essentially, you're just inserting this switch along the positive wire going to that JST at the back of the airplane. Now, I'm going to show you something really important. There's a couple of things. We want to set this up and test it using an LED. That way we can verify that the switch is working the way that it should. Obviously, we're going to be putting a model rocket engine in the back of this airplane, and these things are a little bit dangerous, they're a bit volatile, and you want to make sure you're using them and handling them safely. So, that being said, I have the ESC still plugged into the throttle channel so I can power my receiver, and I have my receiver control switch plugged into channel 6. I'm going to go ahead and turn my radio on over here, and I'm going to plug this guy in, activating the system. As you can see, my solid light on my receiver, I got a good binding connection there. I'm going to plug my little LED tester here, black to black, red to red. The LED is off. Now if you come over here and I flip my flap switch, see that LED turns off, on a switch. Now that's working great, and obviously you want to set that up, test it on the bench, and also I would recommend anytime you're going to use one of these rockets, you test this again at the field. I'm going to show you something to be very careful about with this switch that I just discovered today while setting this up to demonstrate to you guys. I'm going to unplug my battery here for a moment and unplug my receiver. Now in this case, I'm going to leave my LED plugged into my receiver switch here. I'm going to illustrate why you would never ever put a rocket in this model before you've turned everything on and tested it. As you can see here, let me watch that LED. When I first plug the power in, you see the LED flashing like crazy. The receiver controlled switch flashes like that when it doesn't see a signal from the receiver. Watch, if I turn the radio on, as soon as the bind is established here with the receiver, that switch will stop flashing. Ta-da! So now it's stopped blinking at us because it's connected. So obviously you would never want to put a rocket or a detonator into this model before you plug everything on and turn it on, or else you might accidentally set that rocket off. Now once this is all plugged in, you can see the switch operates normally. So just as a precaution, guys, remember always plug the model in, get everything set up before you insert the igniter for your rocket, and test the switch each and every time make yourself a little LED tester like this and make sure it's working like it should. We don't want any rocket accidents. Now, quick note on the rocket itself is also very, very important. You're gonna wanna use a C6O rocket. Now that O, that all important 0 there at the end, means that this rocket has no ejection charge. In other words, there's no little charge at the top end of this rocket so that when it burns all the way down, it goes boom and either blows itself out of the rocket or launches the parachute if you're flying a model rocket. One other thing you've got to do, you can see this is all shiny on the top right here. That's because I've gone through and made a plug for the top of this rocket with a little bit of epoxy. You can use 5-minute epoxy, you don't have to use anything fancy. Mix it up and pour it in there to make a plug. That keeps any fire or any other stuff from coming out of the top end of this rocket. It is just a foam socket in your Me-163 and you wouldn't want to melt that thing. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and reinsert this stuff and show you guys how to put the rocket into the model itself. Bear with me 1 second. So guys, I've got everything back in the aircraft right now. I've left the motor disconnected for safety here on the bench. I'm gonna kick the radio on and plug this battery back in. And there you see our little friend flashing away. That is exactly why you don't want to ever plug the battery into this aircraft with a rocket and an igniter installed. Always plug the battery in first. Verify with your tester that your switch is working as it should, then continue with the rocket installation, which I'll show you right now. Now, this is an already fired rocket that I'm working with here, so I don't have to be too concerned about the safety of things. But as you can see, the port here on the back of the aircraft is exactly sized for this, our C6O rocket. You're gonna just slip the rocket in there manually. So your pack of rockets is gonna come with an igniter. It looks like this guy. It's kind of like the head of a match with a couple little wires and these little nifty silicone plugs that didn't exist when I was a kid. Now, what you're gonna wanna do, I like to plug the 2 leads from the rocket igniter in first, then gently bend the igniter itself into the back of the rocket, and finally, insert your little plug to hold everybody together. Now that system right there works really, really well. We've went through about 18 of these rockets making that product video for you guys that you saw, and every single rocket launch worked totally flawlessly. I'm really impressed with this system. Adds a whole lot to this model, makes it kind of, it's more than just a gimmick. It's pretty exciting, kind of makes it feel more like a real Me-163. And that's gonna pretty much do it for this Me-163.
All right guys, so there you have it. That's how to set up the rocket system for the Me-163. Now, one special tip for you from the comments we've been receiving, make sure when you have the rocket system installed and armed, you're only doing takeoffs from the ground using the included dolly and not doing a hand launch. It can be kind of dangerous doing a hand launch with the rocket system installed. All right guys, so that about wraps it up for this tip. We'll see you next week. Remember to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more tips.